All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and, frankly, colossal challenge. How in the world do you power a nation made up of thousands of islands? Today, we're looking at the story of PGN, Indonesia's state-owned gas company, which has the massive job of connecting an entire archipelago.
Just stop and think about that question for a second. How do you build one single energy network for a country with over 17,000 islands? It is a mind-boggling logistical puzzle, and the answer to that question really tells the story of modern Indonesia's whole energy strategy.
So, to even begin to wrap our heads around the answer, we first have to look at the company that's right at the center of it all, PGN. It has truly become the backbone of Indonesia's energy system. A really great way to think about PGN is like the country's main energy artery. Its whole job is to manage what's called the downstream natural gas business, which, is really just a fancy way of saying they handle the entire process of getting gas from its source all the way to the final user. We're talking factories, restaurants, even the stove in your home. And when we talk about its reach, well, it's immense. Right now, PGN's network stretches across 54 cities and 16 different provinces. This isn't just about a few big pipelines. It's a super complex web that serves everyone from gigantic industrial plants right down to individual families. The scale is it's really hard to fully grasp. But here's the thing. To really understand what PGN is today, you have to know what happened back in 2018. That was the year the company went through this absolutely massive transformation, a huge shift that totally redefined its role in the country's energy landscape. So here's kind of the play-by-play of how it all went down. First, in April, PGN was officially brought under the umbrella of Pertamina, the state's energy giant. Then, later that year in December, it bought a majority stake, 51% in Pertamina's gas subsidiary, PGAS. Now, this wasn't just some corporate shuffle. This was the final, critical move to create what's now known as the nation's gas subholding. So what does gas subholding actually mean? Well, in simple terms, it means PGN became the one single company responsible for the entire journey of natural gas in Indonesia, from the supply, the infrastructure, all the way to your house. The big idea was to get rid of all the overlap and create one incredibly powerful and efficient national gas company. So with all this new consolidated power, PGN was handed a pretty monumental mission. Use this new structure to finally connect the entire nation with a single reliable gas network. No small task. And you can see the real-world impact of that mission in this one number, 659,517. That's how many new household customers were hooked up to the gas network by 2021, just a few years after that big change. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of families getting direct, reliable access to gas, many for the very first time. Now, this growth was being fueled by some key strategic programs. The most famous one is probably PGN Sayang Ibu, which actually translates to PGN Loves Mothers, and it was all about rapidly expanding that home gas network. But the mission was much, much broader, covering everything from developing small-scale LNG for remote islands to literally helping power the national electricity grid. But of course, a mission this ambitious is never a straight line. PGN's expansion came with some really serious financial and regulatory headwinds that, honestly, threatened to derail the whole thing. And this chart, wow, it tells such a dramatic story. In 2020, getting hit by the pandemic and a bunch of other pressures, the company posted a staggering loss of over $264 million. But then, just 1 year later, they pulled off an incredible turnaround, swinging all the way to a profit of over $303 million. That reversal just shows incredible resilience. So, what was causing all that pressure? Well, a big part of it was a regulatory squeeze. See, the government, in an effort to make its own industries more competitive, put a cap on the price of natural gas at just $6 per MMBTU. That's a standard energy unit. This was great news for factories, but it put PGN's profit margins in a very tight spot. And on top of all that, PGN had to deal with a massive tax dispute. The company got hit with a huge value-added tax claim for sales way back in 2012 and 2013. In 2020, they had to put aside almost $300 million just to cover it. But they didn't just take it lying down. They appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. And in 2021, they actually won several of the key cases. That allowed them to reverse over $65 million of that provision, a huge win both legally and financially. So, after navigating all those storms at home, PGN is now stepping into its next chapter, taking its ambitions global and really aiming to become a player on the international stage.
And this isn't just talk, it's their official strategy. As the company puts it themselves, they're going after international business through trading and by building up infrastructure. So they're not just looking to sell Indonesian gas to other countries, they're building the tools, like their own fleet of gas carriers, to become a real global competitor. And that really brings us to our final question here. PGN has managed to unify its domestic market, and it's proven it can bounce back from incredible challenges. The question now is, as the whole world navigates a really complex energy transition, can this giant that powers an archipelago leverage its unique position to make Indonesia a key player on the global gas stage? That right there is the challenge that's going to define its next chapter.